Now we're going to take a look at our Convert tab and all of our different tools that are available for this. We have Extrude Snap, Curve to Poly, Poly to Curve, Curve to Polyline, and Curve to LW Curve. So let's take a look at these different options and how they affect our objects. First, I'm just going to start out by drawing just a simple shape, and I'm going to use the Add command. And just draw something out. And now our first command that we have is called Extrude Snap. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and now I'm going to select our object and just pull off of it. Now this automatically converts our LWCAD curve to polygons, and we've created a shape. So now we have a box lots of different boxes that we can extend upward and edit this. Now if we take a look at our numeric options, we can see we have an extend mode. We can turn that on or off. And if you take a look at the bottom of the object, you can see with extend mode that bottom polygon is removed. So if we're just extending a set of curves or a set of polygons from an object, and we don't want those initial polygons to still be there, sort of as if we were using the smooth shift tool or the bevel tool, then we can use that extend mode. What we also have is a max freeze error. Now this is used, like I was explaining before, we have this available in lots of different tools, and I'm going to show you now how this affects this specific tool. Right now we just have squares, so I'm going to go back and create a different object. I'm going to start out by creating something with some circles in it, and also some rectangles. Okay, so now we can go back to that Extrude Snap, select our bottom point we want to snap from, and we also have the ability to snap this to anything, which is why it's Extrude Snap. But keep in mind, you don't have to snap it to something. We can use this to extend any object to any point we want, snapping to the grid, which includes snapping. So it's not just to objects, points, it's basically just gives us the ability to extrude an object, and in this case also convert our current curves that we had into an actual object where we're using polygons. But now if we take a look at our curved areas that we have a certain amount of points defining the amount of polygons we have to create that rounded shape. If I open up the numeric panel, we can see our max freeze error is set to about 2 inches. We also have our total grid size about 2 feet. So if I reduce our max freeze error, we're actually going to see our object update automatically, and the lower we make our freeze error, the more points we have to define our rounded sections. And the more we increase this amount, the less points we have, up to a certain extent. Raise this up quite a bit, very high, and you can see pretty much as our highest we can go. If I change this to 10 feet, we're still going to end up with the same effect. So there are a certain amount of points that are of course needed to define certain shapes. If I bring this down to 0.25, about 3 inches, bring that down a little lower, and now we can define exactly how many polygons we're going to have. And this is exactly what our max freeze error does in all of our other tools. So when we're working with conversions from curves to polygons, we need to adjust our max freeze error in order to define exactly how much definition we want in our object. Go ahead and close this out, and I'm also going to undo. So now we're back to our curve that we created. We're going to look at the next convert tool, which is curve to polygon. So I'm going to click on curve to poly right now, and you can see we automatically created a polygon. Hit N to bring up our numeric options for this, and now we have a couple of different options. And I'm also going to show you some different shapes just so we can see exactly what these do. We have remove curves set right now. So we can either choose to keep the existing curves and create a new polygon with that. So if we want to maybe use those curves later for something else, all we would have to do is once we create our polygon, select it, we can cut it, put it in a different layer, or we can select our curves, cut them, put them in another layer. But usually it's easier to select just the polygon and then move that out. What we also have is a flip polygon. So in case our polygon is facing the wrong way, we can specify that. We can also use sketch color surface. And this will allow us to view the entire surface of this polygon with a sketch color rather than just the lines that we had for our curve. And that's pretty neat. If we take a look, we also have make holes and convex polygons. Now convex polygons we can see right now. And basically what it's doing is connecting our points so that we don't have any non-planar polygons. And with more complex shapes, that becomes more important. And I'll show you something in just a sec to really explain that a little bit further. But if you also notice, we also have that max freeze error. So we can adjust the amount of polygons that we want to define this object. So now we can see after closing, hitting spacebar, we have our object in here. And if I cut this, you can see our curve is gone because we have remove curves on. So undo. But we also notice we can still see our sketch color from our original curve on this polygon, which is nice to have that ability. Just delete the shape and draw something else out so we can see a little bit better what those other tools really do. And what I'm going to start out doing is just by creating some lines sort of randomly. We'll connect that. And then I'm going to go ahead and offset this. And I'm also going to add to this with the rectangle tool. And we can go beyond the extents, that's fine. And I'll add another addition over here. So now we have an object where we would typically want these insides to be left out, and we don't want a polygon there. Or maybe we do. It really depends. So let's go back and take a look at our curve to poly option. Open the numeric. Now you can see we don't have make holes on, so we have a polygon created for these center holes. If I click make holes, we can see that is completely open. And also convex polygons. And we can see with these convex polygons we're connecting these different points on the ends. And that can be very helpful, especially if we're going to be extruding an object. And we want to keep those top polygons on there, and that way we don't have any errors. So this is a very useful tool, and the fact that it is entirely interactive and we can actually see the changes in the viewports also helps that a lot. You can see with convex polygons on and make holes off, we can see we have all these divisions of polygons within this object, which helps us to make sure that we don't have anything that's going to be non-planar. And this is also helpful if you're going to be creating offset shapes. And like I said, if you're going to extrude them and keep those top polygons, then you want to make sure that you have convex polygons on, because that will prevent some of your overlapping and some of your errors that you will have without it on. Go ahead and delete that. And now we'll take a look at some of our next options. First thing I'm going to do is just create a polygon just by drawing out a box in one dimension. We're going to go to Convert. We're going to select Poly to Curve. And what this did was convert our polygon into LWCAD curves. So we can use a variety of objects created within Lightwave to create some really interesting looking effects. So I'm going to go back to our Creative tab, and this time I'm going to create a ball. go back to our LWCAD tab and select Poly to Curve. So now all of these different polygons we have in there are now LWCAD curves. And this gives us some very cool editing power once we start getting into more of the 3D tools, especially with the Profiler tool, which you'll see a little bit later. Okay, so now let's take a look at creating polylines. So now, if I want, I could use these existing curves we've created. Select Curve to Polyline. And we have a couple of different options. We can select Polyline or 2-point polygons. And now we really don't have any rounding in here, so there's really not a whole lot we can see with this specific object. But we do have 2-point polygon lines now. But I'm going to go ahead and just change this up. Create a circle. Object, just a couple of different circles here. And let's go back and select Curve to Polyline. Numeric, and now we can select Polyline or 2-point polygons. We can also adjust our max freeze error, so how many points we want to have to define these circular areas. And now the difference between Polyline and 2-point polygon is either we create 2-point polygons, so in other words, between every point we're going to have what's considered to be a polygon. So like line polygons that are actually native Lightwave polygons, or we can use Polyline, which is going to create one curve and one polyline throughout the entire object. So it's all connected. So either we do it where we have it separate segments, or we can create it all at once. Close that out. Now you can see we have these large polylines. So instead of just 2-point polygons, we have sections of different polygons. And a lot of that really depends on whether or not you've joined the tool together, or joined all your different objects together or not. And that can affect you in different ways. But you can always end up using the merge command to merge these points together and create one specific polygon. So I can merge right now, 13 points eliminated. You can select some larger areas. But overall, that's basically the same. I'm going to go ahead and delete. And let's take a look at our last option. I'm going to go ahead and create a curve, an LWCAD curve. And now let's say we want to use this as a native Lightwave curve. Because, of course, there are some things we can do with native Lightwave curves that we can't do with our LWCAD curves. And they are separate, so sometimes we need to convert them. So let's go to our Convert option, select Curve to LW Curve, N to open up the numeric options, and all we really have here is our max freeze error. So we can adjust basically how much we want to freeze this and how much definition we want, just as we had before. So we could increase this to a larger amount. Of course, with most curves, you really don't need a whole lot of points to define them. So I can leave it at that. Now if we go ahead and select this, we can see we have our start and end points, and we have a regular Lightwave curve.